Hello. So I thought I'd try making a video about chip strategy. Um, some people starting to think about it now. Whether to wildcard now, 24, maybe 32, all this business. So I thought I'd have a little talk about that. Talk about where I think maybe the fixtures, what's likely to happen with the blanks and the doubles, and that kind of stuff. I was gonna have a deeper dive into this, but I feel quite set on wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34. I'll have a look into the other ones as well because there is possibilities, but I feel like it's pretty likely that's what I'm going to do at the moment. Because it just feels so obvious, but you can just dead end into 31, wildcard out of it. You've got that dual use, and you can use a wildcard to set up a bench boost there. 33 is probably going to be the biggest double. Free hit 34 is probably going to be the biggest blank. Just ticks all the boxes. You can set up in wildcard 32 probably to get your triple captain in 36. Oh, so if you get another double in 36, you can either set up teams for 36, maybe use a triple captain there, or 26 if Arsenal get their double there. And the announcement for double game at 33 will probably come around about here, although I need to talk about that. Probably somewhere around there, though. We'll at least know what's likely to happen there. Well, you've got the FA Cup quarterfinals, so we'll have a very good clue of what's going to happen. It'll probably be some sort of announcement. So it's all just like perfect. And this was one of the reasons I liked the chips in the first half of the season as well, because there was so much variation. But I kind of thought this was going to be quite template and everyone's going to do the same thing and they're all going to pick the same players from the same teams because they'll be the doublers, free hit into the same teams because there's not going to be many teams that are playing in 34. That kind of idea. But I want to have a little kind of look into the other strategies as well because it's not necessarily a given. There are arguments for wildcarding in other places as well. So where to start first? I'll start with just the wildcard strategies and things like that, and then I'll get into fixture, what I think is going to happen with the fixtures later. So, I mean, the main reason I wasn't going to wildcard 24 is because it's very blind. Like, you don't know what's going to happen here. And so you're kind of hoping to get lucky. And you might get wrecked. If it goes the wrong way and you pick a bunch of players from teams that are not doubling and suddenly... Well, I mean, you got an option. You could, I suppose, free hit. You could switch and free hit in 33 if it looks like you've got less players from the teams that double and more players from the teams that blank. You could maybe decide and then just free hit 33. I don't know. There might be flexibility there. You've got transfers, obviously, as well, but my main feeling is very blind, and I was kind of just looking at this, 31, 33, 34, maybe 36. You could have a bunch of teams, Arsenal, Man City, Palace. They could blank in 31. They could be the same teams that double in 33, blank in 34. Man City, Palace could even double in 36 as well, maybe, potentially. So who Man's Palace playing? Brentford? Maybe not. Possibly. Yes, it's just a big flip-flop. And, like, how do you manage that if without a wild card? You've got your bench, obviously, and you've still got your free hit, and you've got your bench, which can take three of those players. So you're like Man City, if you can just bench them, bring them back in, bench them again, whatever. But then what about your Arsenal and maybe Palace players, other players? It's just a few more transfers you're going to have to use to get rid of them, or just sacrifice these blankers. Just play 9 in game week 31, bring them back in for the doubles. That was my hunch anyway. It was just like there's a lot of flip flopping there, and you're probably going to have to use a lot of transfers for that. But if you're the type who thinks that doubles and blanks are overrated, which sometimes they do tend to be more disappointing when you get there. They kind of fall flat a bit. Never quite as good as you think they're going to be. And if you're the type who thinks that double game week players are overrated as well, and that sometimes single game week players can actually be better than double game week players, especially if you get 90-minute men. Sometimes 90-minute men can play more minutes over a certain block of 3 or 4 fixtures than 70-minute men who have an extra fixture in there. But if you actually add up the minutes, sometimes the 90-minute man plays more minutes over less fixtures. So sometimes there are things like that, and sometimes the doubles and blanks they kind of wrench their teams out of joint to target the doubles and the blanks, and they buy players who they wouldn't ordinarily buy. And so you may be the type that just thinks, well, let's just get these single game week players, stick with it, and not be swayed by the doubles and blanks so much. You also have sometimes in doubles players get rotated as well, so they don't play as many minutes. Something to think about. And Arsenal, they have a potential double of Man City away, Newcastle at home. Is that even that good of a double? So you can look at things like these are kind of good arguments for maybe just wildcard. If you want a wildcard now, maybe you could just go for it and hope to get lucky. But I think it will be problematic. It could be really problematic if it doesn't go your way. The other reason why I'm not wildcarding 24 as well is because I just don't think my team needs it that much. I'm quite happy with my team. It's kind of all right-ish. All these players are kind of good enough. I've got my Arsenal in place. City are fine for now. They may switch. I'll probably have to ditch some of them, but Foden to Bruno could happen. O'Reilly to Senesi maybe for the Bournemouth turn. Chow I'm happy with for now. Rodgers I'm happy with. I've got Richards for Crystal Palace when their fixtures term. Going to stick with Ekitike. So my team just feels fine. But if your team feels like it needs a wild card, maybe that's another reason to go now. And another reason is Chelsea. That's a big reason people are looking to go for Chelsea players. But I mean, originally I sold Gu with the justification that I want to get rid of him so that I can have free Chelsea for this block. But now that I'm here, I don't think I'm going to go for any Chelsea. Maybe Enzo, but Palmer looks a bit dodgy for his fitness, and Chelsea have just got loads of fixtures. Probably easier to look on this one. So Chelsea, we're here. Got a fixture every single game week. Got Arsenal in the EFL Cup. We've got 2 Champions League games that they need to do well in if they want to finish in the top 8. Here they'll have, if they beat Charlton, no, that's not Charlton, is it? Sorry, I have to go back to this one. Here, if they beat Hull, they will probably have to play in the playoffs here as well, and they've got Hull there. So, I know. I suppose you can get rested against Hull. That's not a bad fixture for them. So that's a rest there. But then they'll probably have to play in the playoffs here. And so, is Palmer going to play all these games? Probably not. And is he going to get rested in some? Which ones is he going to get rested in? And it's not certain that he'll get rested in the cup games. He might get rested in some of these Premier League games. Who knows? So he seems a bit of a risk to me. Enzo maybe, but we still don't know for sure how often Rossinha will play him, where he'll play him necessarily. I think I'd be maybe Enzo. I think I'd be nervous about people who own Enzo. I'll be nervous about people who own him, but we don't know for sure where he's going to play and how often he'll play under Rossinha. Caicedo, is no point going for him. If you're going for a DM, you may as well go for somebody who's got harder fixtures, because DEFCONs generally come more in the harder fixtures, so it's not necessarily best to bring Caicedo in there. And then the Chelsea defence, they don't really do DEFCONs, and we don't really know for sure who's nailed what Rossinha's going to do. I mean, maybe some people know more about his tactics and want to have a punt, but at the moment I don't really feel like I want to go there. There's other defenders I'd sooner go to, like double Arsenal, probably a Senesi, just because Senesi gets DEFCONs at such a high rate. And even though Bournemouth's defence is a bit shaky, it's not that shaky. Their XGC is not that much worse than some of these Chelseas, and so I still feel like I'd probably sooner go to a Senesi than a Chelsea defender, I think. And maybe a Palace as well. So I don't know, Chow maybe. So I'm not really on I don't want any Chelsea either. So that's why I'm not wildcarding 24, I don't think. Don't really need it. There is Bruno, but I'm probably just gonna get Bruno and Senesi. Foden, O'Reilly to Bruno and Senesi is probably the most likely thing I'll do in 24. And I've got just about enough funds for that. So something like that. So that's wildcard 24. Yeah, is that it? Yeah. Wildcard. So, and then one other strategy then. So that's what. Yeah, I'm not going to wildcard 24. Wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34. That feels good. One other strategy I've heard some people say is wildcard 35. So free hit 33 in a double, dead end into 34. Wildcard 35, bench boost 36. I guess that's the idea. And there is some good things to say about that, because the thing about that is that if you look at the teams that are likely to, as you come around here, so you've got Arsenal blanking in 31. If they were to blank in 34 as well, there's a lot of ifs as well. We don't know yet. But if they were to blank in 31 and 34, they've got Bournemouth at home, which is not bad. You'd have to sacrifice that. But you can free hit in 33, so you can just free hit them in there. And then you can buy them back in a wildcard 35 if you want them. But then it's also the same with a lot of other teams. So Man City are the same. They've got a blank in 31, blank in 34. You can free hit them in a double in 33. And then you avoid the 32 fixture of Man City versus away to Chelsea. So you don't have them for that either, which is kind of nice. Whereas I'd be wildcarding them in 32 Man City players, setting up for the double. I'd have to play them in that Chelsea fixture, which is not ideal. Crystal Palace are the same. They've got Newcastle at home. That's not the best fixture there. And they've got a blank and a blank maybe. Chelsea are also similar. Chelsea have got a good run. So if you're on Chelsea, you like them, you can bring them in here, and then you probably sell them in 28, and they've got this like bad run with Arsenal away, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Everton, City. You can free hit them in the double if they had a double. Then you still won't have them in 34, and then if you want them back, you can get them back in 35. So that's 4 teams there that kind of look like that could work, maybe. Something to look at there. Now, I mean, the biggest argument against that is most people don't like wildcarding late. Wildcarding 35 seems too late. But, I mean, for me personally, that's never been a massive problem. I've always felt like the best time to use a wildcard is just when you have the best strategic deployment of it. Usually throughout the season, your team is just fine. It's just ticking along, it's fine, and you don't have to make wholesale changes. I mean, the best use of a wildcard is when you need to make the most wholesale changes to your team. If you only need to make 1 or 2 transfers every now and then, you don't need to use a wildcard. And so often during chip season, there's kind of strategic deployments of wildcard where you can make a big shift from one team to another. That seems to be like a good use of it. So yeah, it depends how mashed your team is. If your team is really mashed and your bench is mashed, then a wild card, maybe you could make a lot of changes and you get a big boost from it. But I feel like if I wildcarded in now, it'd just be a bunch of sideways transfers and not necessarily, I wouldn't get a huge boost. And one just a thought I've just thought as well. If you are going to wildcard now or early, I would make sure your bench is good, because you're probably going to need it. Make sure you've got playing benches. So even like a Krupi might be a risk unless you think he's going to play, because during the blanks you can make use of all 3 of your bench players and maybe the goalies as well. Just have a look at it so that you can really manage the blanks by using your bench. So ideally you want 4 playing players on your bench. You want to make sure Krupi's going to play. So it may be the case that you should go for 3 forwards. So you have your 2 bench players are 2 5 mil mids that are definitely going to play 5 mil DMs. Maybe go Ekitike and Thiago or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, that was something I thought about, and it was also an argument against the idea of having 1 up front and 4 or 5 mids. Just playing 1 forward, Haaland, having 2 dead spots. When we get to chip season and you get blanks, if you want to use your bench to kind of, to move some of the blankers to the bench, you need playing bench players. And if you've got like a Krupi and a Gue, Krupi might be alright. He might be alright now. He might get more minutes. but Q would be a problem, and so you've lost a bench spot there that you could have just hid some of your Arsenal and your City players if they're blanking in 31. You can just hide them on the bench. So that was another argument I was thinking of. Yep. But then, going back to this other wildcard 35 strategy. So I don't really mind that it's late. The problems I have with it, though, are... So if you're going to dead end into 34, 34 is probably going to be the biggest blank. It may not, it will, almost certainly won't look like this. We'll get surprises. You're going to have to dead end, so you're going to have to pick players from teams that are based... I mean, Aston Villa look alright, Bournemouth look alright, apart from where you're going to be free hitting there, so it's just that Arsenal away game would be tough in 32. So, to have this strategy, you're avoiding Man City versus Chelsea away, but then you're going to have to bring in Bournemouth against Arsenal away anyway. So is that kind of counteracts that one. And Arsenal versus Bournemouth at home is actually probably pretty good. So Chelsea, Crystal Palace versus Newcastle, you're sacrificing, but you're sacrificing that just so you can bring in some like Brentford or Villa players for Forest. Maybe it doesn't work out, but yeah. So free hit, you're going to have to build a team out of the blankers from free hit. Game week 34, you're going to have to build your team out of the blankers get my words right. You're going to have to build a team out of the teams that play in 34, which are going to be not very good teams. So that's not ideal. And then also the bench, if you're going to bench boost in 36, there's no guarantee we'll get many doubles in 36. 33 is probably going to be the biggest double, I think. So, I mean, this Liverpool-Aston Villa one is probably not going to happen. It could. It's probably more unlikely than likely that will happen, though. And there may be one, though. There may be like a Man City Palace or something like that. Man City Burnley. So the bench boost is just, you kind of wasted the opportunity to bench boost. If you free hit here, you've wasted the opportunity to bench boost in 33. And I like the idea of... So, I mean, like a free hit in 33. Well, if I'm wildcarding in 32, it's almost like a free hit in 33. Because I'm going to be building a team to smash 33. I'm just doing it one game week in advance. So your advantage of free hitting in a double to get all these points... Well, I'm going to be wildcarding in 32 anyway to get almost an identical team. Maybe not absolutely identical. Maybe you can go for some short-term punts, but it's probably going to be similar. And then my bench, there's a possibility I could get to 15 doublers in 33, which, sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you get underwhelmed. Last season, we only had 2 doubles. But even then, the more doublers there are, the more it will strengthen your bench, because, even if your bench player has a double, like an Alderete, Mukiele or something, he has a double, he might then push a Rodgers or a Sarr or somebody decent in your team to your bench, making your bench stronger. So the more doubles, the better the bench boost is probably going to be. So you're sacrificing that as well. Yeah. And you can't triple captain if you're going to bench boost in 36. So, I don't know, it's something to think about. But I just feel very set on wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34, and then I'll triple captain in 26 or 36. That feels pretty likely. So, I'll have a little talk now about what I think is likely to happen. So, we are here, game week 22. We've had the third round of the FA Cup. Quite a lot of teams have been knocked out of the FA Cup. So the more Premier League teams that get knocked out of the FA Cup, the more likely blank game week 34 will be a disappointment. It won't be as many blanks. But then I say that, like, you only need 4 Premier League teams in the semi-finals. Like, what are the odds? Even if you get a lot of Premier League teams get knocked out, they're still, the ones that are left in are still more likely to... I suppose you never know. You could get one non-Premier League team, but you only got 4 teams in the semi-final. They're probably still going to be Premier League teams. and then that could create either 4 blanks or 3 blanks. But yeah, we have had a lot knocked out already. 4th round, Aston Villa, Newcastle, pardon me, Liverpool, Brighton. They are tricky fixtures. I'll talk about them in a minute. So we're here. Yeah, Arsenal, most people know about the possible Arsenal double there. I've currently got it at 50%. And Ben Crellin posted someone on Twitter and he had it at 50% as well, which is basically same logic, which is that Arsenal have got like about a 60-70% chance of beating Chelsea in the EFL Cup. But then even if they win, I've only got it as like a 75% chance it'll actually go in 26. I think it probably will, but we don't know for sure. Very likely that Arsenal will finish in the top 8, so they'll be free. But we just don't know. They don't absolutely have to put it there. They could just put it to 33 and put their blank in 34 to 36 and their blank in 37 to 37 there. They could do that. But I think it will probably go to 26. But they got to beat Chelsea first, and that's the part that I'm the least sure about, because even though they got like 60-odd% odds of winning, I'm not massively feeling it. I feel like with Chelsea, new manager, they're probably going to want to put a display on. They're going to be up for it, I think. I mean, Rescheduling will probably want a trophy as ASAP, and Arsenal probably, the EFL Cup is the least priority of theirs. They're really going after the Premier League and the Champions League this season. So now, they've got a good second string team anyway, but not sure about that game. We'll see. So yeah, Chelsea could easily beat Arsenal. So that's going to happen though. But yeah, there could be a double there for Arsenal, but I've got it at 50-50 at the moment. Then 1 second. Sorry. Game week 31 blanks. So one thing to say about game week 31 is I've heard a few people say that it's 100% likely that we'll get 2 blanks in 31, and I don't think that's technically true. I would say it's like 90-95% likely we'll get 2 blanks, but there is this chance that games could get rescheduled to these midweeks, the FA Cup weekend or the midweek here, which is still technically a part of game week 31. So Man City versus Palace, for instance, Palace are out of the FA Cup. If Man City get knocked out, which they're probably not going to get knocked out against Salford or Swindon, but if they happen to get drawn in round of 16 against a tough team like Arsenal, Chelsea, whoever, they might get knocked out. And if they get knocked out, they might just put that fixture, move the fixture Palace City, if it becomes a blank. They might move it to that FA Cup quarter-final weekend, and then that would still be part of game week 31, and it wouldn't be a blank at all. And that's somewhat possible. And the thing with Man City and Palace is that they can't bring their fixture forward to 26 or 27 because Palace are blocking it because they have to play the playoffs in the Conference League. So they're probably going to wait. They're not going to have to announce where they're going to move it. So they'll just wait, and they'll probably wait beyond that round of 16, I think, before they announce it. Because if it's destined to like 33, then they don't really need to announce it until like somewhere around here somewhere, so that they can wait to see if Man City get knocked out of the round of 16. And if they do, they could just stick it there. And there's also an outside chance that both Palace and Man City could get knocked out of Europe before the round, before the quarterfinals, and then it could go there as well. But that's less likely. That's very unlikely that both of them will get knocked out. So there's that, and then it's the same with Chelsea and Everton. Like if Chelsea were to beat Arsenal, Everton are already out of the FA Cup. If Chelsea happen to get knocked out, or if they get knocked out of Europe because Everton aren't in Europe, that's also semi-likely. There's just like little 5-10% chance that it might not be a blank, and it's just somewhat important because if you've got players who you're thinking of getting rid of, your Man City players, you want to get rid of them now. Well, if they're not actually blanking in 31, would you still get rid of them? And it's like, maybe you'd hang on to them. Might be an argument to just hold on to them for a bit longer, just in case. But I think I would still bet that it is going to be a blank. So I would still, I'm thinking of selling Foden and O'Reilly in 24. I'll probably just carry on doing that, even though it might not be a blank. So that's probably what I'd do. But just anyway, just wanted to say that. So that's game week 31. Yeah, I think most people know what's going on with that one. 32, 33, and then what's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? So, well, I want to say one other thing, because Nottingham Forest and Man United got knocked out of the FA Cup. So I just wanted to mention that they were somewhat significant, because Nottingham Forest are one of these European teams that were in the Europa League, which meant that if Nottingham Forest got to the final of the Europa League and one of Nottingham Forest or Man United got to the final of the FA Cup, that game, Nottingham Forest versus Man United in 37, would have to go to the midweek of game week 36. So they have to kind of reserve that spot, which means that there's a knock-on effect. So if, like, where's game week 34? Man United versus Brentford or Nottingham Forest versus Sunderland, if any of those teams get to the FA Cup semi-final, then that game can't go to 36 because it would have been blocked. Creates this kind of like knock-on effect, so it has to go somewhere else. But basically Nottingham Forest and Man United are both out, so that pressure's just kind of gone. There's no pressure there. So the only two teams left that could create some sort of pressure like that might have knock-on effects is Aston Villa and Liverpool. Aston Villa are in the Europa League, and it's the same kind of thing where that 36 might need to be reserved. But the thing about Aston Villa and Liverpool is that they've both been given quite difficult draws in the fourth round. Aston Villa have got Newcastle at home. Liverpool have got Brighton at home. So that is something to maybe bear in mind. As I would still probably say that Aston Villa and Liverpool are favourites to win both of those games because they've got the home ties. And it only takes one of Aston Villa or Liverpool to get to the final of the FA Cup for that to be a problem. So I still think that is likely to be a problem. Aston Villa are favourites to win the Europa League this year. And they don't even have to get to the final. They only need to get to like the semi-final for it to kind of, for that fixture to be moved to 36. And actually, Aston Villa and Liverpool only really need to get, one of them only needs to get to the quarterfinal, and Aston Villa only need to get to the quarterfinal of the Europa League. They only one of them needs to get to the quarterfinal there, and only Aston Villa needs to get to the quarterfinal of the Europa League, which should be quite easy for Aston Villa because they're going to finish very likely in the top 8, so they won't have to play the playoffs. So it'll just be one round for them. And if they do that, then decisions about what's going to go into 33 will be affected by that 36 possible blank there. Possible kind of like being reserved for the Liverpool Villa there, because they'll have to make decisions about 33 with the presumption that will be blocked. So that's kind of how the knock-on effect might work. I'm just going to follow my thoughts here because I'm going on tangents, but there is a question of like, it's getting complicated. There is a question of like, so where would the Man City go? Would it go to Man City Palace game? Would it go to 33? Because originally I thought that, so if Liverpool and Aston Villa go there in 36, then Palace and Liverpool, if that were to become a blank in 34, it can't go to 36, so it would have to go to 33. But then that means Palace and Man City here in 31, that can't go to 33, can't go to 36. No, it can go to 36. It would have to go to 36. Yeah, Palace and, because it can't go to 33, but Palace and Man City could go to 36 there. So that was my original thinking. But Tala Nadeem pointed out a few things on Twitter, and which I think I agree with, and he kind of suggested that Man City, what they'd probably be more likely to do is Man City Palace could go to 33, and Liverpool Palace would go to 37 in that instance. I need to pull back because I'm just like, I'm getting lost down roads here. Let me kind of pull back a bit and explain this a bit better. So 31, we know what's going on there. 33, 34, yeah, so these are just things to be aware of. This Nottingham Forest, Man United, that's freed up. They're both out of the FA Cup, so that pressure's gone. But Liverpool and Aston Villa, it could create a knock-on effect. So just something to kind of be aware of there. Could create a blank as well. If one of them get to the final of the FA Cup, could create a blank there and a double game week 36. So that's what James from Planet FPL's got here as well, blank there. I think it's probably unlikely, more unlikely than likely, but could happen. But then there's the question of, like, so the blanks from 31, where are they going to go? 33 or 36? And the blanks from 34, where are they going to go? 33 or 36 or 37, whatever. Where are they going to go? Now, originally, I had a look at this and I noticed that the blanks from 31 kind of interlink with this Liverpool, Aston Villa and the Nottingham Forest, Man United, although that doesn't matter anymore. They kind of interlinked perfectly, which made me think the blanks from 31 will probably be destined for 36. That was my original thought, because like Aston Villa, Liverpool, Man United, Nottingham Forest, none of the blanks from 31 clash with any of those fixtures. And so they kind of interlink. So you could just put all of the 31 blanks into 36 if you needed to, just as a backup. That would be where they're destined to go. And then these ones, if they became problematic, the Europa teams, they could go to 36 as well. They could all just go to 36 and they'd all interlink and they wouldn't clash. Lovely and easy. And then 34 just goes to 33. And it was something very simple and like nice in my brain about that. They're all just locked into place perfectly, nice and simple. 34 to 33, and then 31 to 36, and all these 37 ones can go to 36, and they link beautiful. And actually, I think that's what James from Planet FPL still has. He has that happening. It looks like he's updated it. He's going to do a video tomorrow, isn't he? So he's the man. He's very clever with this stuff. So it'll be interesting to hear what he says. He originally had Arsenal Wolves going in 27. He's moved it to 26 now, so I think he's updated this. But he's still got Man City Palace going to 36 and Man City Burnley going to 33. And that is important for triple captain considerations. So Man City Burnley, if it were to be a blank there, if it goes to 33, which was my original thought, and Man City Palace goes to 36, well, a Brentford and Palace double is not as good as a Brentford and Burnley double. If Man City get a Brentford and Burnley double in 36, that's a very good triple captain option. But whereas Brentford versus Palace is not as good. That's all that really the main thing to think about that. Maybe some other considerations. So that was my original thought. But then Tala Nadeem pointed out that he reckoned it's more likely that it would be a kind of first come first serve basis. So as soon as whatever blanks come first, they will be scheduled at the first opportunity, and then and that I think is right. I think I'm probably leaning that way now. I think that's correct, because I think I've noticed that in other seasons as well. And so what's basically more likely to happen is that as soon as the Premier League know that there's a blank, they will reschedule it in the soonest possibility. If that's proper English. So Arsenal Wolves, they'll know it's a blank here. If they can get it in 26, they'll put it in 26. It's just if they do a provisional announcement, there should be enough time to get it there. They'll do it. And then when we get to 33, Man City Palace, if that's a blank and it hasn't been rescheduled yet, they'd put that in 33 rather than doing what I was thinking, doing the kind of like 34 into 33 and then doing that to 36, 31 to 36. They'll put that in 33, and then this Liverpool Palace game, if that was to become a blank, it can't go to 33 because Palace will be playing Man City there, but it can't go to 36 either, potentially, if it's blocked by Liverpool Aston Villa. So that would go to 37 in that instance. And that's probably right. But then see, the problem with that is that you're using... Well, is it a problem? No, maybe it's not that much of a problem. But just the interlinking of 36 and 37 with these blanks means that you've still got 37 free as like a backup for most teams, I think. Does that cause a problem? You'd still have 37 as a backup. Whereas Palace... I'm on the edge of a thought and I can't quite get it. I'd have to have another think about that, but maybe it makes no difference because you're still going to have anybody that gets to the final is going to go in 37, probably anyway, rather than 36. But I don't know. Maybe there's some reason, because I'm just wondering. Basically, when Tyler Nadeem pointed out first come first served, I thought that's probably right. But then I've looked at James from Planet FPL's schedule here, and he's got it as he's still got Palace there, Man City Palace. So it'll be interesting to hear what he says. Anyway, it's all convoluted nonsense that probably doesn't really matter anyway. I just like trying to it's just a puzzle I like trying to solve. That's what it is. It probably doesn't really matter that much, other than for maybe triple captain considerations. But for just stepping back, for overview situations, over looking at it, I do generally think 33 will be the biggest double. Is probably the main thing to come away from, because if they do the 34 to 33, then 33 will be the biggest double. And if they do the first come first served method, 31 will go in 33 and 34 will go in 33. If they can do it, they'll just put everything, as soon as it's a blank, they'll just squeeze everything as much as they can in 33. So yeah, 33 is probably the biggest double, 34 is probably the biggest blank. Yeah, that's it. So I mean, this is why I wasn't thinking of doing a video, because I'm just come back to wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34. I'm probably just going to do that, and I'm just going to wait. We'll know more when we get there. But it's interesting to kind of look at all the permutations. What's that? Yeah, it's interesting to see all the permutations. I don't know if I mentioned this as well, but something else. I did this video before and I bodged it. So another thing Tyler Nadeem pointed out was that the gap, I don't think I've mentioned this, the gap between the FA Cup and the midweek of Game Week 33 this season is only 2.5 weeks, whereas last season it was 3.5 weeks. So you got 1, 2, 3.5 weeks. So last season they had the announcement just before Game Week 31. So it was after the FA Cup quarterfinals had taken place. They had the announcement just before 31, which was 2.5 weeks. Bam, and then that was the double there. This season, though, because it's only 2.5 weeks, they would have to make the announcement before the FA Cup if they're going to put FA Cup semi-final blanks into 33. If that's to happen, they'd have to make a provisional announcement beforehand saying the winners of these quarterfinals, their games will come to 33. So that's just one difference to notice. I hadn't even noticed it. For some reason I didn't notice that. So I still think they'll probably do that, because that's what they did with Liverpool Villa last season with the EFL, and that's what we're probably expecting them to do with the Arsenal game here as well. So they'll probably make a provisional announcement. They could do that. I still think that's probably what they'll do. It's a bit of a waste of a big free midweek if it's only being used for 31. I think that's probably what they'll do. But it's just something to consider. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe that short distance means that they're more likely to put the 34 blanks in 36 and the 31 blanks in 33. Maybe that's what they'll do. I remember that was mine and a lot of people's original instinct last season, that 31 to 33, 34 to 36. But they ended up getting rid of the 31s in 26 and 32, and then the 34 blanks went to 33. And then we had no blanks and no doubles in 36 in the end. One final thought I've just thought of as well, talking about the possibility of 31 not being a blank, because some teams might go in the FA Cup or Europe here and it would actually stay in 31. It's possible the same thing could happen with 34 as well. So the chances of having like 4 blanks in 34 is it could happen, but you could just get 3. But then there's also a possibility that some of these teams, if they're not in Europe, their game could just get played in that midweek of 34 there. So it's another pressure that if you're thinking about trying to get lucky in wildcard in 24 and you think the blanks will be let down and won't be as many, you might look at that, because last season it was Brentford and Forest. They got to Forest, I think it was, got to the semi-final of the FA Cup, if I remember rightly. But they were both out of Europe. So their game just got played in the midweek of 34, and it actually wasn't a blank at all. So we only had 2 blanks, and those blanks got moved here to 33. Those blanks got moved to 33, and they didn't have to get moved to 33 as well. Just on that point, like Arsenal Palace could have gone to 36, but they did move it. So that sense of proactivity, that argument that as soon as they get a blank, they'll just reschedule it to the soonest possible slot that they can put it in. I think that's probably what's going to happen. But yeah, but with Nottingham Forest Brentford, it stayed in 34, so it wasn't a blank at all. And this season, we've got a few like that. I mean, Bournemouth and Leeds, neither of them, although that's probably not going to be a blank. Where's one that could be a blank? I don't know. Nottingham Forest Sunderland? Nottingham Forest are in Europe, aren't they? No, that could be a blank. That could be that wouldn't work. Well, if Nottingham Forest get knocked out, I don't know. There's probably a few. West Ham Everton, if that became a blank, for whatever reason, then it could just go in 34. Yeah, something to think about. And these are the odds I've got at the moment. So at the moment, the most likely doublers in 33 I've got is Man City, because they're likely to get to the FA Cup semi-final, and they're likely to have a blank in 31. So they've got 2 double pressures coming into that 33 there. Palace as well, probably a blank here. They've got Liverpool, who, if Liverpool get to the semi-final of the FA Cup, that could get moved to 33. Double pressures. Chelsea Brighton could probably get there. Little bit of 31, little bit of 34 coming into 33. Newcastle Arsenal, that's a game that's kind of likely to be a blank in 34, could come to 33. That's what I've got. And the games that are likely to kind of go ahead, Bournemouth Leeds. So in 34, if you're thinking about dead ending or not using a free hit in 34, you've got Bournemouth Leeds. I've actually got Liverpool Palace, 87% quite likely to go ahead in that game week. That must be because Palace are out and Liverpool playing Brighton. That's probably what it is, isn't it? Liverpool playing Brighton in the 4th round. So their odds are just lower. So that's probably why that's quite high there. Everton West Ham. Everton are already out. West Ham are likely to be out. That's probably going to be a fixture in 34. Leeds Bournemouth. I've said that. One. Man United Brentford. Man United are out. Brentford probably won't make it to the semi-final. So that'll be another fixture. Sunderland Forest and Tottenham Wolves. Yeah. Both of those games, we've got one team already out of the FA Cup. So these are the kind of games that will probably happen in 34. 36. Villa, Liverpool. I've got it as like 30%. That's not quite right. There's a I don't know, 10-20% chance that Liverpool Villa game could go to 36, maybe. And then there'll probably be Man City Palace. Is just a case of what's the odds that both of them will get knocked out of Europe before the semi-finals. Palace are favourites to win the conference. It's probably quite low that they'll both get knocked out, and therefore one of Man City's blanks will probably end up, if they get it, going in 36. It's probably a fair chance we'll have one blank in 30, one double in 36. Probably no blanks in 37 though. That's probably unlikely. They'd all just move to 37 midweek. I'm wilting. I think I'm going to stop talking. That's a lot of talk. I think I'll leave it there. I don't think I'm doing much in game week 22. I don't think I'm changing much. Not many transfers. Okay, I'll leave it there. All right, thanks for listening. See you later.